Hello, and welcome to Making Creativity Pay, the podcast where we talk to people in creative industries about how they promote and market their work. I'm Dan Barnett, and in this episode I spoke with comedian Richard Stott. Richard is currently preparing for the Edinburgh Fringe, where he's performing his show Streets Won't Forget. We talk about nightmare reviews, bad flyering experiences, and a lot of good experiences too, such as reaching the final of the UK Pun Championship. We also talk about how his day job and comedy experience combine, creating social media content for organisations. I started by asking Richard to give a brief introduction about himself.
So I'm Richard Stott. I'm a comedian and I'm a writer. I have been doing comedy since 2018. I've been to the Fringe a bunch of times. I've happily been on things like Comedy Central and the stand-up sketch show. And, enjoy some stage time at some really good clubs.
Fantastic. So yes, you've got a show at the Fringe this year, Streets Won't Forget. I don't know if you want to kind of talk a little bit about kind of what it is and kind of how you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always find that when you talk about comedy shows and you start talking about what they're about and their themes and stuff like that, they start to sound really, really depressing and not very funny at all. And I think that's true for a lot of comedy shows. This one isn't so much. It does sound a bit like a Radio 4 show, but it's, how would I put this? It is a show about our collective need to belong to something and how, in investigating my own sort of childish need to still be liked at the age of 38 by everybody, I actually went on a journey and discovered my own acceptance. The title is slightly skew from the actual theme. The title is just very catchy, and comes from a conversation I had with a guy in a pub who asked me to explain what type of comedian that I am, and he asked me to explain it in football terms. So I said I'm a Streets Won't Forget comedian. Now, anybody that knows football, the Streets Won't Forget is a kind of phrase that's rolled out for, these players that had a lot of flair and skill and would do something fantastic on the day, but, never hit the big time. So it's sort of a joke of like, probably won't get a Netflix special, but good enough.
Yeah, you're the Me Too of comedy.
Yeah. Yes. Or the adulterat of comedy, but Me Too's a great shout.
You're saying there that, yes, you kind of started, you say 2018, sorry?
Yeah, 2018 is when I first, I'd been sort of on the open mic scene a little bit. And then 2018 is, really where I got picked up by an agent and things started moving fast, really, really quickly. Too quickly.
Say, yes, really. I mean, to go from starting to a Fringe show in a year is kind of crazy.
Looking back on it, it doesn't feel right. I mean, we had a good Fringe show. I had a good Fringe show. I had debuted in 2019, and it was fine. People enjoyed it, and we got a couple of good reviews and some joke listings and things like that. But even then, looking back at that, I still sort of wish I'd waited a bit longer to kind of develop my craft before I kind of planted my flag. It's just when you've got one of these sort of agencies, companies going, we really like this. We think we can turn this into something, and it's a whole shebang. And they give you a director, and you've got a brilliant venue, and you're like, no comedian's going to turn that down. I'm still glad we did it. Although it does feel a little early.
I'm always kind of intrigued by the balance between the kind of self-confidence to kind of take a show where there's 4,000 other performers and the kind of self-doubt and imposter syndrome that comes as well. I mean, how do you kind of balance those two things?
So I feel like, because I was so new, I was so green to the whole industry, that the scale of the task and challenge that I was taking on never fully sat with me. In a way, you have sort of an overconfidence about yourself, which in many ways can be quite a big advantage, I think. You second guess yourself a lot less than you do when you're experienced. Yeah, I never went to the Fringe ever thinking that I was in line for awards or anything like that. I went to the Fringe because I wanted to plant my flag and say, I'm a stand-up comedian. This is what I do.
I don't know, kind of over the years, and both in terms of kind of how your career's progressed and how the Fringe is changing or getting worse or whatever. I mean, do you see it now as this great big arts festival, or do you see it as a trade fair, or both?
I think punters can still enjoy it as an arts festival, but for me, it is a trade fair. I don't think you can really go to the Edinburgh Fringe if you haven't got something to professionally gain out of it at the end of it. It's becoming a lot less accessible in that sense, which is sad, really, because I think what you'll probably start seeing is a lot of those sort of risky, wacky shows happening on the Fringe. Because a few years ago, I was planning to do the Fringe, and I hadn't really come up with the idea. And then I did think to myself, well, I could just go up, I could have fun, I could come back with a new 20-minute club set. But then you think of the thousands of pounds that's going to cost you, and it doesn't make financial sense to do that. Whereas even back in 2018, 2019, you could still do it. You know, you could still go and find some accommodation for £500 for the entire thing, £700 maybe. And I'm for this next Fringe show, I'm going with PR. I'm very happy to be going with PR. I think it takes such a big workload off my shoulders while I'm trying to juggle a full-time job and write an Edinburgh show and get it right. Because the marketing side of it has become so slick. It always makes me laugh around the beginning of June, where you get one of the big papers come out and say, here are the top 10 shows to go and watch at the Edinburgh Fringe in 2 months. And I remember one of those coming out in May and go, people haven't even written their shows. How is that happening?
And in terms of picking a venue and a time slot and a price, I'm always kind of interested in terms of, you know, kind of how you put that together. Do you put a lot of thought into it, or is it almost the first place that says yes, you kind of go with? I mean, do you have kind of
I always need to have the right place and time slot for my show. There's sort of big risks involved, and the more that you can reduce that risk, the better. This show that's coming up, it's a small venue. It's only about 40 seats, which suits me down to the ground, really. That would be fine. But that does mean that your margins are sort of, they have a bit of a ceiling. There's only so much money that you can make off that. So what I wouldn't accept at that point is a poor time slot or a venue that has poor footfall. So these are the things that you have to think about, I think. For instance, if I'd been given this slot and they would have said, well, you've got a good time slot, it's a 40-seater venue, but you're over in Newtown, I probably wouldn't have gone for it. And there are some really good shows on in Newtown, and some people know how to make it work. But for me, it's just another great big risk, and I've got to reduce that risk if I'm going to come away not just making some sort of financial dent in what I've already put forward. But you don't want to be a week and a half into the Fringe and you're still on single digits and you're not having a good time, and you've got that whole month stretching out in front of you.
Yeah, because you're on at 5 to 8, which is a really nice time, because that's like a proper show, going out to see a show kind of time.
Mm-hmm.
As you were saying, you know, that then with the footfall makes a lot of sense. In terms of then kind of trying to sell the tickets in advance versus flyers, I mean, how have you found it? Is an awful lot of it still, you know, 20 minutes before?
I think it will be for me. I've got a decent sort of following on Instagram, but I don't have the sort of juggernaut behind me that can really kind of whip up sort of a excitement about your show before you even get there. And it's really cool seeing people say, I've already sold 100 tickets to my show. That's fantastic. I haven't checked, and I don't expect I've sold more than 5. And it's going to come down to getting some word of mouth out and getting reviews in early. That's what it's going to have to be. And I would love to get to the stage where, you know, I can guarantee myself a number of people in every day. But I feel like I'm going to be waking up, starting on low numbers and spending the day trying to get those up, which is really the level I'm sort of at as a comedian still.
Are you looking to kind of get help with flyering, or is it just going to be yourself?
I mean, everybody says that the best person to fly your show is yourself. And that's true, apart from when it's me. I'm really, really bad at flyering. I'm someone who wears their emotions on their sleeve quite a lot. And people can tell that I'm not enjoying myself when I'm flyering. And I when you're trying to get yourself in the mindset for a show and be positive, there are better ways to prep for that than being rejected 150 times by people saying, "Are you funny though? Are you funny? We'll come if you're funny." Really
Do you
winds
get
me
tell
up.
it's a joke? Are
Oh,
people?
of course. Go on, do us a joke now then. Go on. If it's good enough, we'll come. Oh no. Um, people can be so cruel at that festival. Like I mean, obviously this is the majority of people are absolutely fine. But I remember giving a flyer, putting a flyer down on the table, going, I don't want to interrupt your conversation, guys. I'm just going to put that down. It's coming up in a bit. And this guy just ripped up my flyer in front of me, and he went, "Well, not interested." I'm like, "Good God."
But is there even then a part of you then thinking, oh, I could get a couple of minutes out of that? You know, does every, you know, even small tragedy think,
The
oh, you know,
only
that's something.
time I've got a good story about flyering that's sort of in my regular sort of Edinburgh repertoire is I was flyering on Cowgate on a very, very rainy day, and across the road from me there was a burst drain pipe on one of the buildings that was spewing out a lot of brown water, which was coming down and splattering all over the pavement. And I saw a guy walking up that side of the pavement, and he was looking at his phone. And then he noticed that there was a sort of waterfall of raw sewage, and he stopped and he looked up, and then he looked over at me with my flyers, and I saw him realize that he had to make this decision. And he did come over to my side of the road, but you could see he was going, "Oh God." The joke when I do that on stage is, and you know what he did? He just chucked himself in front of a bus.
And in terms of getting ready for the show, I believe just done Brighton, and you've got a show in London coming up.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, you know, fitting in with the theme, you know, ideally maybe you'd want to do a work in progress once a week or whatever, but that's just not practical with
Oh,
the rest of life.
yeah. It's a big bugbear of mine, and I think a lot of other people. Edinburgh isn't really somewhere that you can turn up with an unpolished show nowadays. I know historically it used to be the place where people would get their show ready. But now you really are expected to come up with a finished product. And if you want to get something out the Fringe, which I think a lot of people going up there do, then you are going to have to practice it. Now, how do you actually make that work? Are you going to shell out on train fares to go out to rural towns? And still, who knows if you'll make if anyone will come. A lot of venues in London, they want £75-100 up front, and then on top of that you've got to market the whole thing, and it's really, really hard to get anybody to come to anything. And it really isn't. It's a luck of the draw. I mean, I've had really good numbers at my last two previews. I had one at the Camden Comedy Club, and then one when I did Brighton. We had about 35 people in. However, that's not really wasn't anything to do with my marketing. That was to do with how good the marketing at the festival was that year, and how effective the booklet was. And I think they might have reduced the size of the festival. Also, it was pissing it down with rain, which always helps with Brighton. I do look at some comedians and they've got 15-20 previews, and I go, how? Like, what am I missing here? How have you done this? One, how have you had the money up front to book it? And two, if it's not money up front, then they usually want to take you need to make it back in ticket sales. How are you backing yourself to get this many people through the door? So that they must be getting something right. I'm going to start doing previews in my living room, which well, that's going to be interesting. But I just need to practice this show. I really need to practice it.
So kind of away from the show, you've done a variety of other things. So things like the UK Pun Championships. I think puns are really interesting. They're both kind of the highest and lowest form. I mean, people have a kind of love-hate relationship with them. I mean, how do you find them?
I don't like performing them. I'm really good at writing them, but they've never worked in my repertoire. They've never worked with the kind of energy that I bring to stage. Every time I tell a pun on stage, I feel like I'm crowbarring it in. But they do serve a purpose for me because I could always get in those lists at the Edinburgh Fringe, and that always sends people towards my show a little bit. Pun Championships was great. For listeners who are unaware of the format, there's basically a boxing ring in a big hall in Leicester, and 6 of you compete in it, and you have to go 1-on-1 against each other, and you get given a subject, and you both do 5 puns each, one after the other, and then the audience claps who they think won that round. Worked pretty hard, and I got through to the semi-final, and like lost out to the eventual winner, who was absolutely amazing. It was just good to be in it. It was just good to be in a place where puns actually worked, because it was the context of everybody was sort of looking for it. So you could get really, really abstract with the puns, and people would be up for it. And it was like over 1,000 people there. It was a wonderful night.
Yeah, I'd imagine, a pun at the wrong time just takes all the air out of a room.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my sort of perfect reaction to a pun is a bunch of people chuckling, a couple of people groaning, and then one person going, "Fuck's sake."
Other things as well. So yes, you've been on TV in terms of Comedy Central, stand-up sketch show. Do those kind of things help you get bookings elsewhere, that you can say as seen on TV?
Maybe. I haven't felt a great benefit from either of them. They were really fun to do, and it was good money when it was around. But certainly, it didn't catapult me into a next trajectory of my career or anything like that. But I wasn't expecting it to. I'd spoken to people who'd been on Live at the Apollo, and read things that they'd written, saying, when I was doing Live at the Apollo, I thought, well, this is it now. Nope. It's a different landscape out there. And Live at the Apollo is still amazing to do. It's obviously a big dream for so many comedians. I'd love to do it as well. But that landscape has changed. Does Live at the Apollo give you as much clout as a video that does 54 million nowadays? In the eyes of promoters and industry, they're always thinking about bums on seats. Who's, how is this person going to shift tickets? Is it someone who's regularly going to go viral and has this kind of following that will, or is it someone who's done 10 minutes on Live at the Apollo? I would lean in the direction of thinking that people who are smashing it online are putting themselves in a much better position at the moment in the eyes of industry.
Coming to that, so you're on Instagram. You got, I guess, about 11,500 followers, which I think once you get around above 10,000, that's a tidy size.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, promoters might be interested in that. I mean, do you see that in itself almost as a job?
Absolutely. And I mean, my day job, and when I say my day job, where I make 100% of my income, is working professionally in social media and marketing.
Okay.
And I'm actually studying digital marketing at LSE as well. I got into that job because I enjoyed doing that social media side of my comedy career so much. I like the sort of psychology of marketing, of finding out what works, what doesn't, why some people went for something rather than something else. I've always enjoyed doing that with my own kind of personal stuff. So I brought that into the professional world, and I'm learning a lot more, i.e. that follower count actually doesn't mean a lot. Follower count is actually quality of follower that means a lot. There's a weird way that algorithms work. There's these sort of pillars that they sort of look for, and one of them is authority. Now, companies build up authority by being recommended or linked with other companies that also have high authority, and that drives people who are in that market towards them. Now, it's the same for comedy. You can have a load of followers, but you may have acquired them through the wrong means, if you know what I mean. And then someone could have 3,000-4,000 followers, but they've acquired that following by pretty respected comedians, kind of bigging them up, saying, you guys have got to go and see this. So they're not getting random followers. They're getting actual comedy fans who are out there buying tickets. So someone with 3,000 followers can actually have a much more effective follower base than someone with 20.
Knowing all the stuff you know and experience with it, are you still able to kind of, if you put something out and it gets nothing, are you able to say, well, that's the way it goes sometimes? Or
Yeah. That's just delete, try something else. That's all that is. I think you've got to try and be free and fun with your content while annoyingly sort of remaining kind of true to what the algorithm knows you for. It's a strange thing to deal with. I'm not a huge fan of making online sketches and stuff like that. It's just not been my thing. I'm very much the guy who loves being on stage. I just like being on stage with that audience in front of me.
I mean, I've noticed a trend recently. Obviously, we've got crowd work, and that was huge and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it seems more a trend now where it's almost like a kind of a bit of a crowd piece, but it's all subtitled. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
12 frames across a
Mhm.
couple of pictures that kind of do the sketch or do the bit. I mean, do you think that'll kind of come and go, or
Yeah, these are the stills, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually made a sort of meta joke about this, where I posted one of those as like 4 different pictures of me on stage, and then the text coming through, and it was a bloke asked me why comedians are putting pictures of themselves up rather than reels, and I said I'll tell you why. One, it's good for the algorithm, and 2, it allows me to make it look like I've said jokes I've never said on stage before. Like I've told them at top comedy clubs. No, it wasn't quite that. It was like, I don't know. There was the joke was basically the punchline. Like it makes it look like I've said things in real life before when actually I haven't. Like this entire conversation, for instance, and that's
Yeah.
the sort of meta on that. I've been having some success with that. I don't know. It seems to have died off. I'm not seeing a lot of them anymore.
Yeah, I guess these are kinds you've got to kind of ride it to death,
Yeah.
and then move on to the next thing.
That's the thing. People say if something is working, content-wise, just do it until it dies. Yeah.
I kind of see another trend where people are jumping at the start of a video. So
Right.
the first thing you see is that movement,
Mm-hmm.
and all this kind of stuff just kind of grab attention. And
Yeah, it's a movement hook. Yeah. There's a movement hook, and then there's the trick of putting the punchline at the beginning of the reel, and then people going, oh, how did you get to that? And then you watch the journey of the setup.
because I was looking through your Twitter's kind of died off. I mean, did you used to find that was good?
Yeah, I used to love Twitter. I used to be very, I was on Twitter all the time, and I used to really like it because it was word based, it was writing based. So a lot of comedians have lost a little outlet there. Threads just isn't the same. Blue Sky is just, I really hate Blue Sky. It's like a load of Radio 6 dads just congratulating each other on Blue Sky. And then Instagram is visual, so I feel like we've lost that really active platform. I enjoyed Twitter when it was good.
And so, kind of going back to the show, and we're kind of talking about it being a trade fair and everything. I mean, what are your kind of key goals from the show?
So I need to just put myself back on the map as a comedian and say I'm still here. I need to go up with a piece of comedy that I've worked really hard on, which is packed full of jokes, has got a nice little story running through it, and then just get a couple of reviews and get people to turn their heads and go, you know what, still on the scene, still going, worth looking at. So not the loftiest career goal going, but I think you've got to set yourself something realistic, otherwise you're in for a really tough fringe.
So, I mean, do you feel, your previous Fringe show was 2023? Do you feel like 3 years is a lifetime then within the comedy team?
Feels like a long time, yeah. And that show was really fun, really, really fun. But again, it wasn't a show that I'd really worked on that much. The idea was I was just going up to the Free Fringe. I was having a little mess around, and I wanted to come away with like some brand new stuff. The show ended up doing all right, and it was probably my favorite Fringe. We had lots of sellouts. There were some really, really great nights where people were just like laughed all the way through. I came away with some fantastic new material. I got listed in the Guardian top 10 jokes. I got nominated for the Amuse Moose. And then Steve Bennett came on the last day and gave me 2 stars. So like, it was an interesting Fringe.
How do you deal with something like that?
I don't know. I'd be a liar if I didn't say it felt like a bit of a gut punch, but I knew that he was actually in on a pretty bad night as well. It was one of those things. Chort will just have a habit of turning up on the worst performances. I think the performance before that, they were very kind to me in 2022, where they gave me 3 stars, which I thought I wasn't going to get. And one of my jokes had been listed in the Times top 10 jokes a couple of days before, and it was a Saturday, and I'd sold out well in advance, so, and they were going to be in, and I was like, great, this is brilliant. And I walked out to a sea of white hair, and I thought, well, this is the age demographic that I didn't want in here, because this show's about millennial angst and a load of stuff that they find very, very trivial. And they were a nice audience. They just didn't find it very funny. And I remember, there was so many gaps where there was laughter supposed to be that hadn't happened, that the show ended up running about 12 minutes under. And that got mentioned in the review, by the way.
Okay. So, I mean, in a way you kind of feel, obviously it's never nice to get, but there was some credence to it. It wasn't just a hatchet job.
Oh, yeah. They were fair assessments. I think the last one was a little bit harsh, I've got to say. We had a really good show, and there was some bits of that I think were taken at face value when I was clearly trying to be ironic during the show. But if I didn't make that come across enough, that's my fault. And then it was just it was the other thing with that one. It was a particularly young audience. For some reason, there was a huge group of 21-year-olds in who did not know what was going on, and they didn't know how to behave. Because we're only a couple of years after the pandemic at that point, and they were really, really young and just like, oh my god, what are we supposed to laugh? Are we supposed to? And the room was a little bit bright. There wasn't enough sort of darkness to let people's inhibitions out a little bit. Sod's Law, Chortle just came on the worst performance of that run.
Yeah. And how difficult is it with like theoretically an hour show, to kind of change gears, or if you're doing like a 20-minute club set and a certain bit doesn't hit or whatever, you can always change and move it based on kind of what you're getting back from the audience. But with a set show, it's on a track and it's going that way regardless?
There's a couple of things that you need to do as a comedian, I think, and you're always doing this on stage. You are remembering and performing the show as best as you possibly can. You're also monitoring the audience, and you're going, okay, they like that bit, so they might like that bit a bit more, so we could add the topper on there, or they didn't like that bit, so let's just move on. But we need to come up with something to fill that time in a little bit, so maybe we can do that extra bit that we couldn't quite fit into the show that can fit there. And you've got to do all of that while making it look like none of that's happening. And that's what can be really exhausting about a comedy.
No, I mean, I've certainly not had, I would never do that kind of thing. But yeah, even when, it's audience participation and the comedian asks you something, I'm just like, and everything just disappears. It's easy to kind of sit there and go, well, I'd have done this, I'd have done that,
Yeah, I try and address things. If something isn't going right, I do try and address in the room that it hasn't gone right, because then it's the elephant in the room. If you don't address it, then people are like, well, do you even understand? You're not relating to us. We need to all be connected. So you've got to address when something's going wrong. As much sometimes you address when something's going right. If you get a really, really great bit of feedback from an audience on a piece of new material, I think they sometimes appreciate it when you go, well, good, glad it's the first time that's worked, brilliant.
Are you having a bucket speech as well? Because I know the price is only £8.
Yeah, I think it'll be a bucket speech because it's like you can reserve your ticket for £8, and then some people might have just wandered in. Basically, that's just going to happen, and they're welcome to do that, obviously. So it will be a bucket speech at the end for. I think some people are paid £8 to be here. If you've wandered in, please pay what you think it was worth. I've always found that. I found this in the 2023 show in Cab Voltaire. If I had about 30 to 40 people in, that was a really good bucket. I would get a really good amount of money. Very, very happy with that. Once it got into the upper numbers and I had these sellout shows, which were in the 80s, it got really, really difficult to get any money because there's a safety in numbers thing with the audience. And I remember doing a Friday night show to 45 people and taking away nearly £300. And then the Saturday night completely sold out. I took away £33. And I didn't do anything different. And it was still a really good show. And I did the bucket speech as I always would. And people were just getting out going, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Here's a tenner from our group. There's 15 of them, and it can just get like that.
Do you ever kind of, at the end of the show, kind of promote yourself on social media? I saw kind of... show with Mark Simmons, and at the end he kind of says, right, you're not leaving until someone follows me on Instagram.
That's a really good idea.
So he's got like 50 people going, and he goes, right, you can leave or whatever, and just a little thing to kind of.
It's something I always forget to do. Well, I've always meant to do it. I might actually just print off my Instagram handle a QR code and get everyone to just like scan it, because word of mouth is going to be such a big marketing thing for me. And it's I need you guys to sell the show for me if you liked it, so say something nice about me on your stories, I'll repost it. I mean, I did a bit of a marketing trick in 2023 where anytime I had like a kind of full audience, I would just ask them to go absolutely crazy at the end of it, and I would just film myself with them, and then I would just post that going like another night done, right? And then in the first like week and a half of the Fringe, there was rumors going around like, I think Richard Stott's in for one of the awards, he's doing a really good show. I just made it look like it was like just packed out every night and everything like that. You only have to do that 2-3 times a week, and suddenly the rumor mill starts circulating about how well you're doing.
Thanks to Richard for coming onto the podcast. You can find out more details in the show notes about where to find Richard both online and at the Fringe. If you enjoyed this, check out our other episodes of variety comedians, musicians, authors and others in creative industries talking about trying to make creativity pay. Thanks for listening.